would say, no, you know what? That was the way of the past, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught me better. And I am accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not to my ego, not to my vengeance, not to my anger, not to any of those things. I am accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants an ummah that can read. The first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to me through Angel Jibreel was Iqra, read. And so I will be loyal to that rather than this stuff that I was inherited, that is passed on to me by whoever. So that is what it means. That is what it means, is to look at what Rasul prioritized. He prioritized economic justice. That's why there was the zakat, the abolishment of interest. He prioritized learning. That's why there was forgiveness for those people who taught people. He prioritized the deen and the fundamentals, which is why the first thing he built was the masjid, so people would get to know each other. He prized brotherhood and family, so people would be obligated to each other so they could solve problems before anyone else even knew about them, in secret, before they even reached the level of the public. He built institutions. So these were the sequence by which a religion was built that lasted for 1,000 years. And whether we go to the jungle, or we come to Canada, or we live in England, or we live in Pakistan, or Somalia, or Sudan, this is the same sequence that we must go through to evaluate whether or not we are accountable. Do we have mosques where people come and pray and know each other? Do we have education that comes from the most learned to those who lack it? Full education, not just about how to read and write, but how to manage money, and how to conduct oneself with manners, and how to drive a car, how to manage a business. Education and everything you need to survive in the society in which you live. Does that come from this masjid? Do we have economic justice? Do we know who the poor people are? Because many of them, the most honest poor people, many of them hide because they're proud. Do we have a way of seeking them out and being so close to them that when one man suffers even slightly, there is something at his doorway to help him? So he feels that confidence that he is a part of something. And he feels that greater connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he witnesses his mercy reflected in his brothers in Islam. These were the priorities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is how a man with no literacy was able to build the strongest system of anything the world has known for thousands of years. It's not by accident. It's because he was accountable for the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was accountable personally. He made the people around him accountable for their society, and then the country and the nation and the ummah was accountable too. So the first message is, what is accountability? It is centered around our effort towards doing whatever we know. The difference between the Muslims and all other ways of life is everybody else waited for an entire book to be revealed before acting on a single thing. And the Muslims, as soon as they got one commandment, they acted and they waited for the rest to come later. This is the difference between Islam and everybody else. We do what we know as best as we can. We are accountable for that, and the most accountable of all of Allah's nations. And this is what was told to us in the Holy Quran. And the minute we forget that, we can be replaced by other people who will be more accountable than us. Astaghfirullah, we hope that this does not come to pass. So the first thing is we're accountable for it. The second thing is to understand that we must not major in minor things. That part of the lesson of Sunnah is not just what the Prophet did, but when and how he did it. And so that we have social obligations for which we are personally accountable. And if we forget this, then we don't understand what accountability is. A man cannot sit in a cave, pray 5 times a day, fast, offer zakat maybe 1 time a year, go to Mecca and say, okay, my Islam is complete. If that was the case, none of us would be Muslims. Because nobody had the character of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had nothing more to prove relative to any other man. But he went out into the world. Ibrahim alayhi salam could have sat back and said, oh, you know, everybody else is wrong about God, but I'm just going to pray to the right God in my home. Let him be. It's all right. What do I need to care? And at the end of the day, I figured out the truth. I'll keep it to myself, right? Go along, get along. But this is not the way of the people Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said will be closest to him on the day of judgment. So the first message is accountability is related to effort, not outcome. The second message was let's not major in minor things. Let's major in the major things. And then the third and final sort of message to all of this is that accountability is not a negative thing. Many people, when they talk about, oh, you have to pray, or oh, you have to do this, or you have to do that, it's so dreary and dark and sad. It almost implies like, oh, it's terrible to do a good thing for somebody else. You know, it's terrible to shovel snow for an old lady. It's terrible to feed the poor. It's like a tax. They talk about it. They're so angry and sad and stern. The greatest joy you will ever feel in your entire life, without question, I promise you this, is to help somebody other than yourself. You ask people if they remember when a child was born, their child. They don't remember that the child needed his diaper changed, or that the child, threw up on their hair. They remember how it grew, and how it went from helplessness to strength. And they remember their contributions to that, and it gave their life meaning. Any person, they know this. All of the things in this world that you have for yourself are illusions. Illusions. They come, they go. You have money, you disappear with money. You have food, you can't remember the taste of it 2 hours later. You hear a song or read a book, the memory of it is gone in a moment. Most of these things that society majors in minor things, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the applause of the people who are rented friends, who are like you when you're on top and forget you when you're down, these things, they're all gone. Life will take all of these things from you in seconds and give you more of them. And even the people that have infinite numbers of these things are many times addicted to drugs or trying